Hey you all, it's Auntie Elle, your gardening auntie again, back with another update for this fall. Today is October 21st, Monday, and we are just harvesting some sweet potatoes. This year, I tried something a little different. It was a learning experience, and we'll get into that. It'll become more evident as this continues. I planted my sweet potatoes in these baskets that I got from the farmer's market. They basically give away these baskets that they transport fruit in and vegetables. And I lined them with a little bit of paper on the bottom and left the sides open because I sort of lined them all up together so they would hopefully, in my mind, they would work as one large block of soil, one large raised bed. Unfortunately, it did not quite work out that way. With the inconsistent rain that we had this summer, inconsistent supplemental watering on my part, I'm not looking at a very good harvest. These are like fingerling sweet potatoes at best. And then also, I noticed that a lot of the sweet potato roots went down through the paper and down into the native soil underneath and tried to form sweet potatoes in the ground. So we are always thankful for whatever we get from the garden. But unfortunately, there just is not a whole lot to be thankful for with this sweet potato harvest. But we can still be thankful for the lesson, because now we know that this is definitely 100% not the way to do this in the future. I will be doing my sweet potatoes in a raised bed in the ground. In-ground planting just gives you a little bit more buffer from inconsistent rain patterns, and it gives you a little bit more leeway when you're planting. So next summer, I will definitely be planting my sweet potatoes in raised beds directly in the ground. So these are sweet potatoes straight from the grocery store. These are sweet potatoes that I bought 2 years ago. And I actually was able to use one of the sweet potatoes that I harvested last year, 2023, to grow out my slips, or I should say several of them to grow out my slips for this year's growing season. You can see the sweet potato harvest there at the bottom of that basket. I've now moved on to harvesting the ginger that was in my grow bags, my fabric grow bags. Again, for me, potted gardens in general just require a little bit too much maintenance. A little bit too much, too tight of a watering schedule. Even my potted herb garden that was on my back patio, at the heat of summer in late July, early August, if I didn't water it for 2 days, or if I, maybe went out of town for a weekend, I would come back to, my plants would be nearly fried. So I just take that into consideration as I am considering what I'm going to plant and how I'm going to plant in the years to come and next growing season. But we are just emptying out all of those, and now we're moving up to the front yard because these are ginger rhizomes that I planted directly in the soil. And you'll see the difference between the harvest from the grow bags and the plants that were directly in the ground. And again, that is just because there's just a bit more consistency. The soil stays a bit more moist rather than in those grow bags and in those baskets that I had the sweet potatoes planted in, where they just dry out very, very quickly. Now the plants that you see in front, that little yellow sunflower there is Jerusalem artichoke. And as I am pulling the ginger out, some of the Jerusalem artichoke has actually begun to spread forward toward where I'm standing, across the ginger and up toward the front of that bed. I had no idea that Jerusalem artichoke was going to be quite so welcome, quite so at home in this space. I'd already made plans to move the Jerusalem artichoke, that sunflower, over to a different area in the garden. But now I see that it is imperative that I get it out of there. My Jerusalem artichoke got to probably 10, maybe even 12 feet tall. And it just is monstrous. And in that section of the garden, I would just prefer to have space to put in plants and take them back out versus having a standing perennial in that space. So I do have a place on the other side of the rain barrel in the front of the house that I could put the Jerusalem artichoke, but I'm also considering a space on the side of the house as you're walking into the backyard from the driveway. So now we are just trimming up all of this garlic. I'm sorry, not garlic. This is ginger. We're going to trim up this ginger. I'm going to take those green tops off. The leaves are great in tea, and I'm going to take and put some of those in the dehydrator to use for tea. It has a very, very extremely mild ginger flavor. And the stalks I use in a ginger syrup. So you actually can take the stalks, cut them down into maybe 3-inch lengths, and boil them in water. And then you just add some sugar, one cup of sugar for every cup of water, just like you would with a regular simple syrup, but it has a mild ginger flavor to it. And I'm just going to finish trimming this all up. I typically will let my sweet potatoes age for about a month before I'll use them. These are really small, so it may not take as long for them to age up. And you do that really with the larger sweet potatoes because you want the sugar content in your sweet potatoes to sort of rebalance itself. So when the sweet potatoes are actively growing, there's a lot of water content. And so a lot of the sugars, it basically doesn't taste as sweet. So if you allow them to age for about a month, some of that water content is going to evaporate off and be lost by the potato, and the sugars are going to concentrate, which makes them sweeter when you decide to eat them. Some of those small gingers that you see there, I just put in that pot. I'm going to attempt to grow those over the course of the winter as a house plant. In addition, you see on the right side of the bin there that I'm trimming everything up. Those are the original ginger rhizomes that I got from the grocery store, or the organic ginger. I'm going to keep those as well and attempt to use those. Those are still nice and firm, and some of them even have eyes on them still. So I'm going to try to utilize those next spring for my ginger plants. So I have 2 options now, in addition to buying more organic ginger from the grocery store. So we're just going to pull the last of those roots off. We're going to feed all of that stuff back to the chickens. And we're going to take the ginger leaves and stems and put them, cut them up for tea and for syrup. I'm going to run that out to the chickens. And they are always happy to get the chicken tax, as I like to call it. I wanted to show y'all real quick. I got these little shrimps that I put in my pond earlier this year, and they're the only thing that made it. The fish are gone. Everything else is gone. That's it, y'all. Thanks for watching. See you next week. And here's the next video.